Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into a pretty profound narrative today, one that unpacks the radical mechanics of deep human connection and, surprisingly, the hidden costs of true understanding. Think about it. We spend our entire lives talking to other people, right? But how often are we actually communicating? Today, let's explore a practice that completely flips the script on how we see and hear one another.
To get started, let's anchor this whole journey on a really powerful metaphor, the true mirror. This idea comes straight from the notebooks of a philosophy professor who was absolutely obsessed with a single, seemingly simple question. What does it actually mean to see another person? When she passed away, she left behind boxes of these fascinating notebooks diving deep into this concept. She realized that a lot of the damage we do to each other doesn't come from malice. It comes from inaccurate seeing. We're constantly projecting our own fears, our hopes, and our assumptions on everyone around us, basically turning them into distorted reflections of our own egos.
So, to really understand her work, we need to talk about the core of her methodology. It's called accurate echoing. This is the foundational discipline of just holding space for someone else without letting your own ego get in the way. It's like trying to become a totally clear window instead of a funhouse mirror. You listen and you reflect back exactly what you heard. You organize it the exact way they organized it with their exact emphasis. You aren't adding your 2 cents. You definitely aren't offering advice. You are simply witnessing. Part 1. The illusion of communication. Why we rarely hear what is actually being said. What's so wild here is the contrast. In ordinary, day-to-day conversation, we aren't truly communicating. We're mostly just managing each other's emotional states. We ask, "Hey, how are you?" mainly to confirm the other person isn't going to disrupt our day. But accurate reflection, that completely suspends the ego. It's not about jumping in to fix someone's problem. It's about offering them the incredibly rare, profound gift of human transparency. Part 2. The practice of accurate reflection. The mechanics of becoming a true mirror. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that we're not just talking about being a good listener. This is a rigorous 4-step mechanical process where you literally become an external consciousness for the speaker. You start with ego suspension, literally checking your own perspective at the door. Then you move into accurate echoing. As you get the hang of it, you advance to graduated disclosure and finally, ethical timing. That last one is huge. It's the wisdom to know when someone actually just needs comfort versus when they need that razor-sharp clarity.
To put this into perspective, think about Helen. She was an early test subject who went through this exact curriculum. During her sessions, she suddenly started uncovering things about herself she had literally never seen before. And why? It wasn't because the listener was psychoanalyzing her. It was because the space between them was finally totally cleared of interpretation. Having her exact words reflected back to her so perfectly, she described it as hearing herself think out loud for the very first time.
Incredible, right?
Part 3. The burden of accurate perception. The unexpected emotional cost of perfect clarity. But, and this is a big but, there is a shadow side to ethical reflection. Let's look back at Helen. When she returned to her day job as a pediatric nurse, things got weird. All of a sudden, she was hyper-aware of this constant, messy miscommunication happening between terrified parents and clinical doctors. She could hear everyone's unsaid fears perfectly, but there was no socially acceptable way for her to jump in and intervene. You can imagine the exhaustion, right? This constant internal translation leads to intense social isolation. Because once you learn to see human connection in vivid color, living in a world of fuzzy, imprecise conversations gets incredibly lonely. And that heavy burden forces us to ask a really provocative question. Is the pursuit of ultimate truth in human relationships actually worth the loneliness it requires? I mean, if insisting on perfect accuracy makes you completely incompatible with the messy, everyday world of casual misunderstandings, is it a gift or is it a curse? Part 4, Truth versus Love, the experiment of marriage and relentless honesty. So Helen and her husband David decided to put this to the ultimate test. They had this recurring, absolutely gridlocked argument. David wanted to aggressively save for retirement, and Helen wanted to spend money on travel right now. Standard couple stuff, right? Well, they decided to set the standard debate aside and use accurate reflection. Helen simply mirrored David until, boom, his true hidden fear emerged. His father had died right after retiring and never got to live his dreams. Then, David mirrored Helen and revealed her deep-seated fear of living a restricted, unfulfilled life just to hoard money. In only 45 minutes, they shifted from these rigid, angry battle lines to shared, vulnerable interests. Pure witnessing literally dissolved years of gridlock. However, they also learned a fairly dangerous lesson along the way.
When Helen started sprinkling in some psychological analysis, basically telling David what his thoughts meant rather than just echoing them, David immediately felt attacked. He felt like he was married to a therapist, and no one wants that. There is a massive, vital boundary here. Interpretation imposes your meaning onto someone else, but reflection reveals their reality. You absolutely must resist the urge to show a partner your thoughts about their thoughts. Part 5. The Art of Integration, bringing accurate reflection into a messy world. The early practitioners quickly realized they needed a more mature evolution of this work if they were going to survive in society. So they developed what they called integration practices. A huge one was graduated authenticity. Think of it like having a volume dial for truth. You learn to turn up the honesty when someone can actually handle it, and you turn it down when they simply can't. They also developed stealth reflection. This allowed them to balance that desire for truth with basic social connection, especially in environments that just weren't built for radical, unfiltered transparency. This level of adaptability is perfectly captured by a 12-year-old girl named Maya. Because she grew up in a household that practiced reflection, Maya was basically a native speaker of absolute accuracy. But as we all know, middle schoolers do not speak that language. So she deployed stealth reflection. She subtly used the core principles of mirroring, asking much better questions, reflecting back key phrases, intentionally not interrupting. It made her classmates feel deeply, profoundly heard, without ever making them feel weirded out by some formal psychological technique. She essentially translated radical truth into everyday kindness. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you to contemplate your own everyday conversations. Think about the people in your life right now. Are you truly seeing them, or are you just seeing your own projections bouncing back at you? Just imagine how your relationships might transform if you suspended your ego, even just for a minute, and offered someone the terrifying, beautiful gift of an accurate mirror. What actually happens when we truly see each other? I'd love for you to keep that in mind the very next time someone simply tells you how their day was. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey, and keep seeking clarity.